Good evening, live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Newshour, India's voice to the world. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Coming up in the next hour. India's Operation Sindoor hits 9 terror sites in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. No civilian or military targets struck. Global reactions support India's strike against terror. World leaders now urging restraint and de-escalation. Social media battles misinformation surge. Indian government's fact-check unit debunks fake posts, maintains strict vigil. Nationwide civil defense drills and blackouts test India's emergency preparedness. India on Wednesday released multiple videos showing its armed forces striking terror camps in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. 9 terrorist camps linked to groups like Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Toiba and Hizbul Mujahideen were targeted and destroyed under Operation Sindoor to avenge the deadly April 22nd attack in Jammu and Kashmir's Pahalgam. Fuzail Ahmed reports.
Operation Sindoor launched. On May 7, 2025, 9 sites targeted. Terrorist infrastructure targeted in POJK and Pakistan. Justice was served for the victims of Pahalgam terror attacks on Wednesday as Indian Armed Forces launched Operation Sindoor, hitting terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir and Pakistan. Terrorist attacks were planned and directed from these camps against India.
Investigations into the Pahalgam terror attack have brought out the communication notes of terrorists in and to Pakistan, the claims made by the resistance front and their reposting by known social media handles of the Lashkar-e-Toiba speak for themselves. Identification of the attackers based on eyewitness accounts as well as other information available to law enforcement agencies has also progressed. Our intelligence has developed an accurate picture of the planners and backers of this team. The features of this attack also tie in with Pakistan's long track record of perpetrating cross-border terrorism in India, which is well documented and beyond question. Pakistan also has a well-deserved reputation as a haven for terrorists from around the world, with internationally proscribed terrorists enjoying impunity there. In addition, Pakistan has been known to willfully mislead the world and international forums, such as the Financial Action Task Force, on this issue.
India demonstrated considerable restraint in selection of targets and method of execution. The actions were focused, measured, and non-escalatory in nature. No Pakistani military facilities were targeted.
9 terrorist camps were targeted and successfully destroyed. Over the last 3 decades, Pakistan has systematically built terror infrastructure. It is a complex web of recruitment and indoctrination centers, training areas for initial and refresher courses, and launch pads for handlers. These camps are located both in Pakistan as well as Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir areas. Some of the well-known training camps are located, as you can see on the screen. They are distributed from Savai Nala in the north, counting to approximately 21, ending at Bhagalpur to the south.
Altogether, 9 sites were targeted. They are Savai Nala Camp, one of the most important camps of LET and is used for recruitment, registration and training of LET cadres. This camp was functional since early 2000. It is 30 kilometers from the line of control in Tangdhar sector. Saidna Bilal Camp is the main center of JEM in POJK, located opposite Red Fort, Muzaffarabad. This facility is used as a transit camp for JEM terrorists prior to their launching into JNK. Gulpur Camp, Kotli, is 30 kilometers from the line of control. Active base of LET terrorists in Rajouri, Punch. 2611 mastermind Zaki-ur-Rahman Lakhvi used to give speeches here. Abbas Camp Kotli is 13 kilometers from the line of control training center for elite suicide bombers. This camp used to train around 50 terrorists. Barnala Camp Bhimber is 9 kilometers from the line of control used to train weapons, IED manufacturing and jungle survival. Sarjal Camp Sialkot in Pakistan is 6 kilometers from the international border. The terrorists responsible for the killing of 4 Jammu and Kashmir police personnel were trained here. Mehmoona Zoya Camp Sialkot in Pakistan is 12 kilometers from the international border, a major center of Hizbul Mujahideen. The attack on Pathankot Air Force Base was planned here. Markaz Tayyaba Muridke is 25 kilometers from the international border, headquarters of Lashkar-e-Taiba. Terrorists Ajmal Kasab and David Coleman Headley, involved in the 2008 Mumbai attacks, trained here. Markaz Subhan Bahawalpur is 100 kilometers from the international border, headquarters of Jaish-e-Mohammed. Terror commanders like Masood Azhar used to give instructions from here.
सवाई नाला कैंप मुजफ्फराबाद जो कि POJK के लाइन ऑफ कंट्रोल से 30 किलोमीटर दूर है। यह एक लश्कर-ए-तौयबा का ट्रेनिंग सेंटर था। 20 अक्टूबर 2024 सोनमर्ग, 24 अक्टूबर 24 गुलमर्ग, 22 अप्रैल 2025 पहलगाम, इन हमलों के आतंकियों ने यहीं से प्रशिक्षण लिया था।
These steps came in the wake of the barbaric Pahalgam terrorist attack in which 25 Indians and 1 Nepali citizen were murdered. Fuzail Ahmed's report for DD India.
With India carrying out precision strikes on terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri briefed envoys and representatives of 13 UN Security Council member countries in New Delhi on Wednesday and conveyed that New Delhi's response to April 22nd Pahalgam terror attack has been targeted, measured and non-escalatory. The Foreign Secretary said Pahalgam was a barbaric terror attack and everyone saw what it was. The Indian Armed Forces launched Operation Sindoor, hitting terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, from where terrorist attacks against India have been planned and directed. Soon after the focused strikes on terrorist and terror infrastructure in Pakistan, India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval briefed his counterparts across the world about Operation Sindoor, made it clear that perpetrators of terror have been targeted in this operation without hurting any civilian. World leaders expressed solidarity with India in the fight against terrorism and called for restraint. Here's more.
Strikes on terrorists and terrorist infrastructure at 9 sites in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir as part of Operation Sindoor. NSA Ajit Doval spoke with NSAs of several countries, including US NSA and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, UK NSA Jonathan Powell, Saudi NSA Musaid Al-Aiban, UAE NSA H.H. Sheikh Tahnoon, Secretary General of NSC of UAE Ali Al-Shamsi, and NSA of Japan Masataka Okano. Contact was also established with Russian NSA Sergei Shoigu, member of Political Bureau of the CPC Central Committee and Minister of Foreign Affairs of PRC Wang Yi, and diplomatic advisor to French President Emmanuel Bon. NSA briefed his counterparts on actions taken and methods of execution, which was measured, non-escalatory and restrained. He emphasized that India had no intent to escalate, but was well prepared to retaliate resolutely should Pakistan decide to escalate. Global leaders have urged restraint and expressed solidarity with India in the fight against terror. Israel has extended its support to New Delhi, defending its right to self-defense. Israeli ambassador to India, Reuben Azar, wrote on social media platform X, and I quote, "Israel supports India's right to self-defense. Terrorists should know that there is no place to escape from their heinous crimes against innocents." End quote. Reacting to Operation Sindoor, US President Donald Trump said, and I quote, "People knew based on some of the past experiences that something was going to happen. hope that the fighting between the two countries will end soon, end quote. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres' spokesperson said that the UN chief is very concerned and has called on both nuclear-armed Asian neighbors to exercise maximum military restraint. The UAE's Foreign Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan urged both India and Pakistan to exercise restraint, de-escalate tensions, and avoid further escalation. French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot has also called on India and Pakistan to exercise restraint. The Russian Foreign Ministry said that it condemns all forms of terrorism and it was deeply concerned by the growing military confrontation between India and Pakistan. China's Foreign Ministry spokesman also called on both sides to exercise restraint. Qatar's Foreign Ministry said that it is deeply concerned about the ongoing tensions between India and Pakistan and called for resolving the crisis through diplomatic means. UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy in a statement said UK was clear in its condemnation of the horrific terrorist attack in Pahalgam last month. UK's Foreign Secretary David Lammy in a statement said, and I quote, UK was clear in its condemnation of the horrific terrorist attack in Pahalgam last month. We need all sides to work urgently to see regional stability restored and ensure protection of civilians. End quote. Former British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak strongly supported India in its fight against terrorism. He said, and I quote, no nation should have to accept terrorist attacks being launched against it from land controlled by another country. India is justified in striking terrorist infrastructure. There can be no impunity for terrorists. End quote.
And Prime Minister Narendra Modi convened a high-level meeting with Union Cabinet post-Operation Sindoor. Political leaders across party lines praised the Indian Army for its precise and restrained action. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh stated that India had exercised its sovereign right to respond to acts of terror. The operation sparked widespread celebration, with many viewing it as a moment of justice delivered under Prime Minister Modi's leadership.
Once again, India was compelled to exercise its rights to pound rogue terror outfits operating from across the borders, disturbing peace and prosperity time and again. In a powerful message to those who threaten peace, the Indian Armed Forces launched precision strikes at 9 locations, targeting terror infrastructure across the border. This comes in the wake of the barbaric Pahalgam terror attack where 25 Indians and 1 Nepali citizen were martyred. Just hours after Operation Sindoor was initiated, Prime Minister Narendra Modi convened a high-level meeting with the Union Cabinet. The entire cabinet stood united in support of the armed forces and hailed the strike. Prime Minister Modi also briefed President Draupadi Murmu at Rashtrapati Bhavan on the overnight developments. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh called the operation a demonstration of India's sovereign right and praised the armed forces for their precision, alertness and sensitivity.
भारत की सेना ने सटीकता, सतर्कता और संवेदनशीलता के साथ कार्रवाई की है। हमने जो लक्ष्य तय किए थे, उन्हें ठीक समय तय योजना के अनुसार सटीकता से उन्होंने ध्वस्त किया है और किसी भी नागरिक ठिकाने, सिविलियन पॉपुलेशन को जरा भी प्रभावित न होने देने की संवेदनशीलता भी हमारी सेना ने दिखाई है।
As the operation unfolded, Union Home Minister Amit Shah chaired a crucial meeting with Chief Ministers, DGPs and Chief Secretaries of border states. Leaders across the political spectrum voiced strong support. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar urged the global community to adopt zero tolerance for terrorism.
हमारे दुश्मन देशों को संदेश ले लेना चाहिए कि हम लोगों को उनके चप्पे-चप्पे की खबर है, एक-एक ठिकाने की खबर है और आगे ऐसे और एक्शन लेना होगा तो हम लोग उतनी ही मजबूती से।
The opposition also put politics aside. The Congress party and its leader Rahul Gandhi extended full support to the government and armed forces. MP Asauddin Owaisi also welcomed the decisive action under Operation Sindoor. From grief to justice, families of the Pahalgam victims expressed relief and pride after the strikes. Many call the operation absolutely necessary to deliver a strong message against terrorism.
बहुत धन्यवाद करती हूँ, उनसे बहुत थैंक यू कहती हूँ कि उन्होंने मेरे पति की मौत का बदला लिया है। जिस तरीके से हमारे पूरे परिवार को उन पे विश्वास था, उन्होंने उसी तरीके से जवाब देके हमारे विश्वास को कायम रखा है।
मोदी साहब ने बदला लिया है। सेना के जवानों को यही मैसेज देना चाहती हूँ कि आगे बढ़ते रहो।
Across cities, towns and villages, citizens stood united. From Delhi to Dibrugarh, slogans of Bharat Mata Ki Jai and Vande Mataram echoed through the streets. India saluted its brave soldiers and celebrated their firm stand against terror.
पहलगाम का जो बदला लिया है इसके लिए मैं बहुत ही धन्यवाद करता हूं प्रधानमंत्री का।
अभी तो कुछ भी नहीं जवाब दिया, हम तो चाहते हैं कि इतना मुंह तोड़ जवाब देना चाहिए कि दुश्मन हमेशा के लिए याद रखे।
15 दिन के अंदर अंदर पाकिस्तान को मुंह तोड़ का जवाब दिया गया है भारतीय सेना ने, और पाकिस्तान को अभी अकल आनी चाहिए।
But even as the dust settled, Pakistan resorted to provocation, violating the ceasefire with artillery fire in Jammu and Kashmir's Bimber Gully. The Indian Army responded with equal resolve, underscoring that every threat will be met with strength. Operation Sindoor is not just a military operation, it's a message that India will not stay silent in the face of terror. A message of unity, resilience and unwavering resolve. Tripti Tripathi for DD India.
And DD India's Jessica Taneja joins us with more. Jessica, we talked about Operation Sindoor all day. India also engaged with the international community. Give us a sense of what happens next.
That's right, Shubhendu. The kind of situation we've seen so far, the turn of events we've seen throughout the day, it's difficult to decipher as to what comes next in particular, and difficult to point as well at this moment. Also because of the fact that if there were to be a retaliation from Pakistan, and as what we've been gathering from various news reports, and certainly at this time disinformation is at play, so nothing can be confirmed, is the fact that Pakistan might be planning a retaliatory response. Now, what would that be? Would that be a military response? Would that be just along the border? Because at this point, what objective will the Pakistan military have in terms of responding to India? Because there are no equal, obvious threat, symbolic, target, or threat perception, as they say, from India at this point. Because what India did with its precision strike was to only take down the terror outfits and the training camps that were operating out of Pakistan, and especially in Punjab, not just in Pakistan occupied Kashmir, as we've seen in the recent past. So in a way, Pakistan would have to retaliate when equal, a measured target or a symbolic target to that effect. And India, unlike Pakistan, does not harbor terrorists or terror outfits that create menace in other countries. So what would that response be? So a lot remains, to be seen as to what Pakistan does in the next few hours, few days, few weeks. But what we've been picking up, there could be some movement, but nothing sure. And of course, fear-mongering at this point only creates more disruption. So given the kind of situation we are in, it's difficult to decipher as to what the next steps would be, at least from across the border. But what we know back home, that India is currently prepared, and India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri also expressed quite visibly this morning in his presser that India is ready for any kind of response that might come from Pakistan, given how irrational it would be on Pakistan's
Jessica,
part
you talked about
to initiate retaliatory action of an unequal measure.
Right, you talked about preparation, even as India tackles cross-border terror. How is the civil defense preparedness taking shape, particularly in the context of mock drills and blackouts that we witnessed this evening?
Right, that's all part of Operation Abhyas, in which there have been mock drills conducted in the civil defense districts. Now, civil defense districts have been identified based on their threat perception. Now, these mock drills were carried out in approximately 232 districts in the wake of any kind of threat that is coming in from Pakistan, or the kind of warmongering we're seeing on Pakistan national television right now is in fact, a picture in itself. But India, on the other hand, is prepared. And if you saw the recent reports, Home Minister Rajnath Singh is also monitoring situation on various border areas that also includes Nepal. And we're given to understand that the kind of preparedness you need at this point, even when it comes to mock drills here in the national capital as well, Shubhendu, just a short while ago, there was a 15-minute blackout in the NDMC area just to sort of see the kind of preparedness where we are, given the kind of escalation from the Pakistani side, wherein India has tried to maintain restraint and not have any civilian casualties to the effect where its precision strikes only go on to dismantle terror outfits and their training facilities. So on its part, these civil defense districts that have been identified are different from the natural administered districts, if we could tell our viewers now. These civil defense districts would house important facilities, and it's based on threat perception. And of course, a lot of it said only leads to fear mongering. As I said earlier, it will be best to not speculate further.
Sure. Jessica, thank you for those updates. And joining us now to take forward the conversation on Operation Sindoor are two eminent guests. Lieutenant General Raj Shukla, retired, former Army Commander. Also joining us is Arvind Gupta, Director VIF and former Deputy NSA. Good evening and welcome, sir. Mr. Gupta, I'll come to you first. We're still waiting to connect with Lieutenant General Raj Shukla. What would you say India has achieved with Operation Sindoor?
A great deal. I think firstly, it has restored the deterrence that had broken down with the Pahalgam attacks. That is one. Secondly, it has demonstrated that India has the capabilities of doing very precise operations simultaneously, very efficiently, over a vast area on 9 locations. So that's a message to Pakistan and to the world. Third, that it's a zero terrorism policy that we follow, and every such attack will be responded to in a carefully calibrated way. And fourth, I think there is also a kind of self-confidence that is there now in India, that we can deal with these situations, because this was a very difficult time. We had to respond properly, not escalate, attack the terrorist infrastructure, and also keep an eye on the international community while satisfying the urge in the anger that was there in India, responding to that. So I think the government has done very well, and this is a moment for some satisfaction.
And what would you say about the scale of the attack? As you mentioned that they were focused, measured, and importantly, non-escalatory in nature.
Yes, that has been the effort, because it is the terror infrastructure and terrorist groups that have been attacked. And this was also the case in Pulwama, after the Pulwama attack. But this time, the locations have been many more than just Balakot, and they are in different points in the POK, as well as deep inside Punjab, in fact quite close to Lahore also. So this time the operation is much wider and conducted in a very efficiently, just in a matter of about 25 minutes. And the press briefing which was given by the Foreign Secretary, I think also made the context very clear.
Right.
That it was the terror infrastructure that we were attacking, and it was a non-escalatory measure that India was contemplating. Now it's up to Pakistan what they do.
Right. Mr. Gupta, also the press conference that you mentioned, would you say it was also quite rich in symbolism, from the name of the operation, Operation Sindoor, to women officers discussing and telling us about how the operation was undertaken against the terrorists?
Yes, absolutely. I think the whole nation was captivated by the masterly press conference and briefing that was held. And of course, the Foreign Secretary was brilliant, absolutely, but he is a professional diplomat. But we had 2 young officers who came and gave very professional presentation on where the attacks were and how. So I think that is something that is a new and very welcome.
Right. You also spoke about the manner in which India had engaged with the international community before and after the attacks. How do you see the significance of that, taking everyone along? And in the press conference, there is also evidence which is clearly provided about the non-escalatory and targeted attacks that India had engaged in.
Yes, as you can see from the various reactions coming from different parts of the world, which your reporter was reading. And you can see that nobody has criticized India for what it has done, except for China, which has called it regrettable. But nobody else. China's reaction we can expect, and everybody, in a sense, has accepted that India's response is measured and justified, and everybody has said condemned the terrorist attacks. But of course, as it's the want of international community, they will definitely talk about restraint and maintaining peace and regional stability, and talking about diplomatic solutions. But that is something that can be expected from the international community. But I think we can take heart from the diverse reactions that have come, and India, and this is the result of what was done in the last 15 days. And also this engagement is likely to continue over the next few days or few weeks.
And sir, what can you tell us about the ecosystem of infrastructure, the terror infrastructure across the border, across the line of control, the scale of attack that we've talked about earlier? What kind of dent do such sporadic surgical or other strikes make to the terror infrastructure that exists?
Obviously, there will be some impact on the terrorism infrastructure, because this time they have attacked Murid K and Bawalpur, which are two very big centers of training, etc. But terrorism is something that morphs. As we have seen, TRF was the offshoot of LET. Now these people have not gone away, and the people who are the masterminds and who are the planners, they are still there. And more important, the Pakistan Army's mindset and their want to use terrorism as a policy, that has not gone away. So yes, there would be some dent on what they are doing, and they will be more scared, I think, or more afraid of doing these things in the future. But India should expect that this terrorism ecosystem is very vast, deep-rooted, has been there for a very long time. It has international roots. And terrorism morphs also very well. We are seeing this happening in other parts of the world. So terrorism is there, and we should not let our guard down or convince ourselves that one strike or a series of strikes is really going to end the menace of terrorism. Because here terrorism means the Pakistani army and guys.
And so, talking about the peculiar nature of terrorism, the way it morphs, also the challenge of hybrid warfare, we see that it's not just the conflict on the ground, but also fake narratives, fake videos, content that are peddled on social media, especially around times of such tensions. How do you see also that as a particular challenge that needs to be targeted, that the government has also been cautioning people about?
Yeah, that's a very serious challenge, because all this is part of the hybrid war which takes place, and today every war is a war of on the social media, war of narratives, and the use of emerging technologies like the AI, etc., to spread fake narratives. And it is very difficult to have a 100% response to these. So the best option is that we remain vigilant. The individual, the countrymen remain vigilant and not fall for the propaganda, and try and learn the methods of discerning what is fake and not fake, and have a faith in our leadership, the government, and so on, and not to get swayed, because the enemy, the adversary, they do want to take advantage of the spreading confusion taking advantage of the communal fault lines, etc. So we should remain alert and not fall prey to this. And I think India and as a country as a whole and people as a whole have demonstrated that they can discern what is right and what is not right, what is fake and what is genuine. And I think the whole country is absolutely united, and that's a very heartening thing to see. And that is probably the only counter to the efforts on the other side, which are going to continue and probably become worse over the time.
Right. Let me at this point also invite Lieutenant General Raj Shukla, retired former Army commander. Good evening and welcome, General Shukla. Now, we've been talking about Operation Sindoor since morning today. An operation which we understand, as the Army puts it, carried out with great precision. But for a layperson, you could help us understand how complex and challenging it is to carry out such an operation successfully.
So thank you. Let me, in the context of what you asked me, just let me make 5 to 6 quick points.
Sure.
One is, today I was reminded of what Super Cop Mr. KPS Gill said many years back. He said, the war on terror will not be won merely by running after terrorists. It will be won by overwhelming the adversary. I think Operation Sindoor has converted that manifest wisdom into a strategic reality. In that sense, it is a seminal moment in our war of terror, is also in the evolution of our statecraft. And let me now come to this unfolding of what I call calibrated military kinetics. Operational Sindoor has there are many objectives. There is avenging the savagery and the bestiality of 22nd April. It is a good response to the dog whistle of Asim Munir of 16th April. But what really, has really fascinated me is the manner in which this whole this framework of calibrated military kinetics has unfolded. It has shown great synchrony between sensors and shooters across domains. Land, air, sea, space. It would have taken a lot of effort to calibrate intelligence from ISR platform, space, humanint. We have seen amalgamation of power instruments, the loiter munitions, some drones were used, so unmanned manned systems, air power, and all that air power carries with it the lethality of scalp and hammer and so on. So firstly, the chosen option was maximized for lethality, de-risk as much as possible. And in the choice of the target array, I think that was also very astute. Because we said, listen, we are escalating it, we are widening the swath. This time we are striking all the way from Muzaffarabad to South Punjab.
Yes.
But we are confining it to the terror ecosystem. And the inherent signaling is that we retain escalatory dominance. We can move it to other targets, but we are not doing it. And I think the principal purpose was twofold, where we told them, listen, this whole, schoolboy bluff of the nuclear, shall we say, instrument will not work. You cannot, under nuclear cover, unleash a terror rampage right from Parliament attack, Nagrota, Kaluchak, so on and so forth. And I think the last point is that we have conveyed to the Pak military that, listen, if you continue with this terror, we will not hesitate to use the military instrument in increasing doses of lethality. And I think that is the central purpose. From some statements that are coming out, it does seem to me that Pakistan has quite got the message, and it may not respond. I'm not saying it will, it may not respond. So if this was round one, I would give it very high marks, 8 on 10 or 9 or 10, at least on the evidence so far. I don't know what Dr. Gupta thinks.
Right. Also, the larger message with Operation Sindoor by India, not just to the adversary, but to the world at large, given the context in which the press conference unfolded earlier today.
Yes, exactly. And see, even the world at large has to come to one reality. And this first point is this. If we just go back into a little bit of history, till about 65, what the Pakistani statecraft vis-a-vis Kashmir was something like this, that we'll send jihadis. Once we send jihadis, the locals will rise in uprising, and then we will send our conventional forces. This was behind the spirit behind, or the thinking behind 65, the attacks in Akhnur, Chamb and so on. A country much inferior economically was using its conventional instrument. Till the Indian Army got into its act, it took a while. By the time we came to brass tacks, we had set such conventional prowess that we told them that, listen, if, under General Sundarji, that if we wheel westwards, you are gone. They responded very feebly with Zarb-e-Mumin, but what they did was, they realized they couldn't tackle us conventionally and took their entire response to what is the low-intensity conflict. And there somehow, the international community bought this whole bait that Pakistan sold. That, listen, we are a nuclear state, and under the nuclear cover, we will go on a terror rampage. So I think our response to them is that yes, the nuclear paradigm is a dangerous domain. We are responsible, but we know what the red lines are. You will not set the red lines for us. And we have shown them early this morning that we can calibrate our military operations. We have the generalship, the statecraft, we have the capacities to so calibrate it to keep it well short of the nuclear threshold. And if this message goes out to the international community and to Pakistan, I think it will be a very strong message. And may I make just one quick point more, and that is that the international community must also realize that as long as the Pak military does not submit to civilian control, this, they will continue to act in this very strategically obtuse manner, keep using terror. So how about persuading the international community, persuading the Pak military to submit to a fundamental principle of democracy, which is submit to civilian control, and much of these problems will stop.
Okay, Mr. Arvind Gupta, with your experience in the security domain, how do you also map the evolution of India's preparedness, India's stance against terror? In 2016, we saw the surgical strikes. 2019, the Balakot airstrikes happen. And 2025, it's taken even further with Operation Sindoor. A guest earlier today, when I called it, is it the new normal? He said it's the new normal plus.
Yes, I think as General Shukla pointed out, that our response has also been incrementally becoming more robust, more assertive, more professional, better calibrated. We understand the different dimensions much better, and we are much better prepared, as was shown by the great professionalism with which these strikes were carried out on a series of targets all over Pakistan, Punjab and POJK, etc. But as I said, terrorism itself morphs. Terrorism itself is it's not gone away, and it is taking new dimensions. And here the additional problem is the Pakistani military's mindset. Whether such actions will divest them of their mindset and they will submit to democratic control, civilian control, that is a very big question mark. I think that is not going to happen anytime soon. And given what the situation in Pakistan is, the economic situation, the security situation, and so on, and also the fact that Asif Munir is under pressure, the Pakistani army itself is losing its credibility. So they will find some ways and to make themselves relevant. So I think these tensions with India are likely to continue, and they have the nuclear weapon is one excuse that they have with the international community, which they brandish all the time. And the international community, as you could see from the series of reactions which have come out, most of them, I think most of them have said that the two sides should de-escalate and they should exercise restraint and should not disturb the regional peace and stability. And this is the reaction which is coming from Russia, from the US, and from UAE, from Saudi, and so many other countries. So international community is Pakistan has that nuclear thing, that card which it can play, and the fact that it has its certain geographic, geostrategic geographic location, which makes it important for many countries. So those are the advantages it has, but our challenge would be to nullify those. And I think we have done that fairly well over the last few weeks. And nobody has condemned India or criticized India for carrying out these attacks. The only thing they're saying is that it should not further escalate. So I think terrorism is something that we'll have to keep a watch and deal with it as it begins to morph and take new shapes. And we were discussing a little while earlier how new technologies also are playing into the hands of terrorists.
Right.
And terrorists have nothing to lose. One set is nullified, the next set comes in. So that's what happens.
Right. General Shukla, many would also be curious about what do these terror bases, hideouts across the border, across the LOC look like? We understand that 9 such bases have been struck by India, 5 in POK, 4 in Pakistan, but it looks like hundreds of kilometers of widespread ecosystem. What can you tell us about it, sir?
You see, I have personal knowledge of one, Bahawalpur, because the corps that I commanded, Bathinda 10 Corps, Bahawalpur, the corps commander was my immediate adversary. And I remember this thing which is coming out today of this, the office and residence, shall we say, of the JEM chief, Masood Azhar. That place not only had a firing range, it had a range, to practice your whole business of mine training. There was a cross-country course. There was an obstacle course. Many modern military academies would fail to equal it. And there it was in open sight. And during a swift retort, some discussions did take place of hitting it, but they didn't quite materialize. So you have many such places. Murid Ki is another one. We know of the what is there in Sialkot. We know of what is there in Muzaffarabad. But the issue is, as all of us know, not only these training camps, but the launch pads. Many of the launch pads have merged totally with the Pakistani military deployment. So they are in such close, shall we say, convergence, that it makes it very difficult to distinguish it in terms of legal dossiers. So this time what we have done, our assessment of what these launch pads, training camps are, based on our documentation, we have gone and hit. So this is a function of power. When the United States strikes Qasim Soleimani or Al-Zawahiri, it presents legal dossiers only to itself. It doesn't present those legal dossiers to the world. So, there is this whole very elaborate network, but as Dr. Gupta rightly said, they take no time to metamorphose. They will. So the bet is what? The bet is on the mind of Asim Munir, the corps commanders, the ISI network, that listen, next time you think of plotting a strike, because of what was done to you, postpone the idea by about a year or 2. That is the best we can hope for, to take this terror as a tool of statecraft out of the mind space of the Pakistani strategic military establishment. I think that was the purpose of the strikes.
And General Shukla, as India targets not just the terror bases, but the mind spaces, as you say, what kind of preparedness as a more responsible power can India work towards?
Now see, that is an entirely different matter. I think this is just the beginning of the bump. Given the very large national security challenges that we have, we really have to step up our game by an order of magnitude. And here I would like to make 3 points. I think one Dr. Gupta has already made. See, the one metric that can be used to shall we say, narrow the gap with China is technological innovation. Some great things are happening in Ukraine. Everybody knows about it. In our case, we have taken some halting steps as part of Atmanirbharta and defense, but we have a long way to go. Secondly is in the business of statecraft. We just turned, I think, day before, the IMF said we are now the 4th largest economy, we'll soon be the 3rd largest economy. As we step up into this game of bigger power competition, our whole national security system has to act with far greater speed, pace and scale You just see what reforms are being carried out in Pentagon under Mr. Trump and Pete Hegseth. They are mind-boggling, those reforms. So in our procurement, in our innovation, technology induction, we have to do a lot more so that as part of our statecraft, the instrument of force is nourished better and it's in higher states of lethality and readiness. That is very critical. With Pakistan, we have seen what the challenge is. With China, it is even greater. And the last lesson, I think, once again from the crisis is this, that while the diplomatic space is important, technology partnerships matter, supply chain collaboration is of significance, when push comes to shove, you have to be largely autonomous. And, I think so creating autonomous capacities in the strategic military system is a huge challenge, which we all are familiar with. And we really need to do a lot more. And this was not only an opportunity to give a message to Pakistan, but should also be a wake-up call to our own selves to step up our game in national security by an order of magnitude.
On that note, Lieutenant General Raj Shukla, Mr. Arvind Gupta, thank you very much for joining us in the News Hour and sharing your perspective. Still to come on DD India News Hour. Government of India's fact-check unit debunks pro-Pakistan fake narratives. Full-scale civil defence mock drills held across the country to assess India's preparedness for emergency response. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. For decades, India has confronted relentless terrorism originating from Pakistan. Tonight, we examine this enduring challenge, the attacks, the impact, and India's firm response to cross-border terrorism. The next report tells us how India has faced terrorism from Pakistan over the years.
While the world embraced a new millennium, India continued to be subject to cross-border terrorism, planned and executed from Pakistan. India, in fact, has been a victim of terrorism originating from Pakistan for a significant period. Major terror attacks in India have been attributed to groups based in or supported by Pakistan, and these attacks include the 2001 attack on the Indian Parliament, an attack on the very temple of Indian democracy, 9 killed, 18 injured. The 2002 Akshardham temple attack in Gandhinagar, 31 killed, 80 injured. A series of coordinated attacks in Mumbai in 2008 by Lashkar-e-Taiba operatives, 164 killed, over 300 injured. In 2016 Uri attack, 4 terrorists belonging to Pak-based Jaish-e-Mohammed attacked the Indian Army Brigade headquarters in Uri, 20 killed, 21 injured, considered the deadliest attack on Indian security forces in Kashmir in nearly 2 decades at that time. The attacks did not stop. In 2016, an attack on an Indian Air Force base in Pathankot. In 2019, Pulwama attack, a suicide bombing in J&K targeting Indian security personnel, 40 killed, 5 injured. The latest that shook the national conscience was the Pahalgam attack in April 2025, resulting in the killing of 26 civilians, 17 others injured. More than 350 Indian civilians have succumbed to cross-border terrorism in the past decade and 800 injured in these dastardly acts of violence. Over 600 security personnel have laid down their lives and more than 1,400 injured while protecting the nation from this scourge of cross-border terrorism. India's response has involved a mix of strategies. India has consistently raised the issue of cross-border terrorism with Pakistan and the international community. Security measures include strengthening domestic security, intelligence, and counter-terrorism operations. India did not sit quiet. The 2016 surgical strikes conducted after the Uri attack targeting terrorist launch pads in Pakistan-occupied Jammu Kashmir, the 2019 Balakot airstrikes launched after the Pulwama attack targeting a Jaish-e-Mohammed camp in Pakistan. Following the Pahalgam attack, India conducted precision missile strikes on alleged terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. In short, India has faced a long history of terrorism linked to Pakistan and has employed various diplomatic, security, and military means to counter this threat. The situation remains tense, particularly after the recent Pahalgam attack and India's retaliatory strikes. Bureau Report, DD India.
India's enemies remain relentless, whether along the borders or in cyberspace. But the nation stands prepared. The Indian government is acting with resolve, fortifying the defense not just with weapons but also with truth. From exposing misinformation to dismantling Pakistan-backed propaganda networks, every step is aimed at safeguarding citizens from psychological warfare. DD India's Rahul Upadhyay gets us more.
The enemies of India are never at rest. Whether it's the borders or digital space, the rogue elements are always at mischief on multiple fronts. But India is ready. The government has taken decisive action, strengthening its defenses not just on the ground but in cyberspace. The Indian government's fact-check unit under the Press Information Bureau has ramped up its efforts to debunk false narratives being circulated online. As the Indian armed forces struck terror camps in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir on Wednesday, a parallel war unfolded on social media, with fake videos, misleading images, and unverified claims flooding platforms like X and Facebook. The fact-check unit has issued clarifications on its social media platforms addressing misinformation related to the April 22 terror attack in Jammu and Kashmir's Pahalgam that killed 26 people. What started as a focused and effective military operation by the Indian Armed Forces has now spiraled into a chaotic online propaganda war. Pro-Pakistan social media handles and even influential political figures are deliberately spreading fake news, fabricating stories of miraculous military victories and heroic retaliation that simply do not exist. Their goal is clear: to flood the information space with falsehoods so quickly and overwhelmingly that it becomes difficult to separate fact from fiction. This goes beyond mere misinformation. It's a deliberate, orchestrated effort to warp reality, mislead the masses, and shape public perception to serve a specific agenda. In a blatant effort to hijack the narrative and distract from the reality on the ground, Pakistan's state-affiliated accounts have turned to their familiar playbook, recycling outdated images, misrepresenting old videos, and inventing completely fabricated claims. However, the Indian government has taken decisive steps to combat misinformation by banning several Pakistani social media platforms known for spreading false narratives. But new mischievous ones keep cropping up every now and then. Rahul Upadhyay's report, DD India.
Post the surgical strike on terror hubs in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, full-scale civil defense mock drills were held across the country on Wednesday to assess India's preparedness for emergency response. The drills aimed at sensitizing and mobilizing civilians in case of an emergency were carried out across major cities, including Delhi, Mumbai, Pune, Bengaluru, Lucknow, Gwalior, Patna, and in the northeast states as well. The measures included provision of crash blackout sessions, provision for early camouflaging of vital installations, and updating evacuation plan and rehearsals. In Delhi, a thorough mock drill was conducted at New Delhi Municipal Council (NDMC) office and at the bustling Khan Market, simulating emergency situation campaign. As part of the mock drill, multiple states and cities such as Mumbai, Delhi, Punjab, Gwalior, Patna witnessed power blackouts for around 10 to 15 minutes on Wednesday. During a blackout, power supply is cut down, leading to total blackouts during night to shield areas against enemy attack. You're watching DD India Newshour. Time now for some updates from the world of sports. Indian skipper Rohit Sharma on Wednesday announced his decision to step aside from Test cricket. 38-year-old, who was appointed as the captain in the longest format in 2022, led India to the 2023 World Test Championship final against Australia. Rohit's decision to retire comes on the back of a dismal 5-test series against Australia, where the experienced campaigner only scored 31 from 3 tests. More in this report.
Captain Rohit Sharma called time on his Test career, announcing retirement from red ball cricket with immediate effect, bringing an end to widespread speculation about his future in the format. Taking to his Instagram story, Rohit posted a picture of his Test cap and wrote, "It's been an absolute honor to represent my country in whites. Thank you for all the love and support over the years. I will continue to represent India in the ODI format." The decision comes after poor home series against Bangladesh and New Zealand late last year, and then a horror tour of Australia across December 2024 and January 2025, where he crossed 50 just once and averaged 10.93 from 8 test matches. India won both the tests against Bangladesh, but were swept 3-0 by New Zealand under Rohit's captaincy, and then lost the Border Gavaskar Trophy series in Australia 3-1. Rohit retires with 4,301 runs in 67 test matches, averaging 40.57 despite the poor recent run. He scored 12 centuries and 18 half centuries over the years, with a best of 212 against South Africa in Ranchi in October 2019. With Rohit's retirement coming up and a little over a month to go for the start of India's 5-test tour of England on June 20, the biggest question for the selectors will be naming the next Test captain. Hitman's retirement now paves the way for a new future leader, with Jasprit Bumrah, KL Rahul, Shubman Gill and Rishabh Pant emerging as the front-runners. Sports Desk, DD India.
That's all for this edition of DD India Newshour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. This app is available on both Android and iOS. Scan this QR code on your screen and download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Newshour.